number 56.
As she glances at my laptop. We're talking about transmutation of adversity. We started that topic in our last episode and discussed how adversity actually carries a great benefit with it, even though it's difficult, even though you don't like it. Now, here's the fundamental and scientific reality is that destruction is the foundation of existence. Interesting, right? What appears to be tearing down is actually the assembling of new material and a new space needed for a greater and grander structure. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
So, can you give me an example, a practical example of how we have to tear something down before to create a space for a grander structure?
Well, let's say you want to become a healthier person. And you got to tear down the unhealthy habits that you possess at the moment in order to develop into the healthy habits.
Right. And the disassembling is always the hard part.
Yes.
The tearing down is the difficult part. That's the adversity. But the material, see, science tells us that all that ever was or ever shall be is already here. So we don't create any new materials. Everything that we create that is a new structure comes from materials that are already here.
Yeah.
And so when things appear, here's the great news, if you can grasp this. When things appear to be falling apart, they're actually coming together on a greater and grander scale. You've experienced that, haven't you?
Yes.
I certainly have. You know, true power is released in disintegration. Now, I know this isn't popular, but when things disintegrate, it releases power because order and structure is an unnatural state. What does that mean to you? Why is order, do you believe that order and structure is an unnatural state for energy?
It seems like it would be, only because things would be static.
That's right.
There'd be no movement.
That's right. Everything in this universe, according to physics, is comprised of what?
Energy.
And energy has to
move.
So when you put something into a structure, it's not doing its natural thing. And so when that structure is disintegrated, whether it's your business or your relationship or anything in the physical world, you're releasing power. And so it makes sense to me. I'm reminded of the quote by the Buddha, who stated, "Enlightenment is nothing more than progressive disillusionment." What's that mean?
Progressive disillusionment. Yeah, it is.
You think that's funny? What does that mean?
I don't. I think it's very painful, actually.
Okay, explain that, please.
Well, yeah, that's hard to explain. Like, where do you start? You're better at breaking down these complicated explanations.
Well, you laughed and you said it's painful, so you've evidently
the
experienced.
Disillusionment is to see the world as anew, like it's not what you thought it to be,
right?
And everything in it, and that's a hard pill to swallow. That's hard to let go of. It's hard to watch it fall apart. It's scary,
right? So you become progressively disillusioned with the things you used to be enthralled with.
Right.
You know, it's like the Apostle Paul said, when I was a child, I thought and acted like a child, and when I became an adult, I put away childish things. Now, not everyone puts away childish things. And yet that really is the same concept, isn't it? It's progressive disillusionment. The things that we were once enthralled with, the structures, the systems, the results that we were once enthralled with, have to be destroyed, have to be let go of, so that new power, new energy, new things can be produced.
Yes.
And that happens through adversity. And that's really transmutation. Transmutation, the art and science of transmutation, is taking something of a lower value and doing what with it?
Turning it into something of higher value.
That's right. So when we realize, and this is similar to what you said, when things are not as they appear to be, or as we've always believed them to be, it's difficult.
Oh, it's very hard.
It's really hard to let go.
Yeah.
But to embrace this concept and to literally let go is to set yourself free.
That's for sure.
It's to literally access new power. Now, I'll give you a personal example from my life. In 2009, I'd created quite a structure.
Yes, you did.
Quite an empire. And maybe you know something about my story, maybe you don't, but I won't go into all of it here. But, I had the big estate on Mulholland Drive in Beverly Hills. I was all over the media. I had a New York Times bestseller. I was making millions of dollars a year. I had created quite a structure, and then went through a tragic accident, and it all fell apart. And boy, it was hard. Yeah. It was frightening, and it hurt. And yet now on the opposite side of that, talking about the transmutation of adversity, that was extreme adversity in my life. And now here I am. Oh, and by the way, I was alone. I didn't know this lovely young lady back then. And so now here I am. I'm very happily married, and we have a modest and yet beautiful place.
Yes.
In Henderson, Nevada. And, we're not making mega millions per year, and yet we're really blessed, and we're doing what we love. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. I really wouldn't. Now, when I was in the middle of all that crash and that turbulence, I couldn't see it. I really couldn't see it. But hindsight is almost always better than foresight, if you will. And so, that's my advocacy to you. And I know you have your own examples, Bersabeh, but what's an example of you going through an extreme destruction and coming to a new creation?
Which one do I go with?
Yeah, the best one.
I've had a few. Okay, so one that everyone could relate to more would be going through a divorce. Where I actually moved out of the States. I was living in Europe when I was married in my previous marriage. And any marriage or relationship that comes to an end, it's hard. Even if it's not the best relationship, even though you both know that you need to go your separate ways, it's still difficult. And having to be married is kind of like, okay, when I will get divorced, I'm going to have to start all over. So you don't really see a light at the end of the tunnel. You can't. It's just you think like your life is over,
Well, it is in a sense, isn't it?
Well, it is.
That life that you used to believe and hold.
Yes. And if someone would have told me that if I let go of that life, then this life is what was waiting for me, I probably would have let go of it way before it was over. So that's one example of...
And I'm really glad you let go, frankly.
Yeah, me too.
I really am. And so here's our advocacy. Transmutation of adversity is the concept here today. Easier said than done. And yet if you get the principle, because principle always precedes practice.
Yes.
When you get the principle, then the practices can follow. If you can ground yourself in principle, and what we would encourage you to ground yourself in is this, continuously, is that when you realize something is not what it appears to be, or how you've always believed it to be, whether that's a business or a relationship or an empire, in my case, quote unquote, and you realize it's not the way you believed it to be or that it appeared to be, to let that go is difficult. And yet to do that, to let go sooner than later, really minimizes your suffering.
Oh, yeah.
And it maximizes your happiness and fulfillment. And that's how we set ourselves free.
Yes.
And so hopefully that's a value for you here today.
Thank you
we want to thank you for a couple of moments of your time. God bless you. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday.
See ya.
Take care.
Bye.